following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system for Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both the players and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning. With me, as always, are my co-hosts of extraordinary character, Stefan and Chris. How you doing, fellas? Starting with you, Stefan.
I'm doing awesome. Just sad that my latest Dragonspawn game got canceled, but things happen when players have little babies that they have to take care of. But it allows me to work still more on my setting, little details I want to set up and convert from 3.5 to Genesys. But things are moving along.
Cool.
And you, Chris?
Roll initiative. That's how I started my D&D campaign on a Saturday night. Because
awesome.
At the end of last session, the session before last, the ranger got swallowed by a frog moth. So that's how we started this session. It was pretty fun. And they loved the chili, pulled pork. So you had to throw some food in there. Did the smoked pulled pork, threw it in the chili. How about you, Tony?
Well, been chomping at the bit for the new Keyforge expansion. Went to a Keyforge game tonight. Lost my ass.
And it what? It sucked what?
Yeah, it sucked. Hairy, fuzzy monkey balls.
There it is.
So, and then, on top of that, I'm getting ready for NIFCon 3 next week, so I'm putting the finishing touches on my Kung Fu Panda adventure. And I have a full game now, 5 players.
Oh, excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait for
Nice.
that. It's going to be great.
So,
That will be good.
yeah. Looking
We got
forward
quite
to
the
that.
show. We got quite the show tonight, don't we?
Yes.
So we're gonna rip through this. Which is what? What's the name of the show?
Tales of the Epsilon Eclipse. Barfolk.
Yes.
So we're talking
Who can find in the
species.
Epsilon? Yeah. Who can you find at the Epsilon Eclipse? Who are the regulars?
Who can you play? Who can you be? Those kind of things.
That's it.
So we got a little bit of news, don't we, Stefan?
A little bit of news. So good news is the Ready Fight by Keith Capel, the fighting combat supplement, unarmed combat especially, is now up to Electrum bestseller on Drive-Thru-RPG.
Mm-hmm.
All thanks to our podcast, of course, when he was on the show.
Of course.
It's
And
all our fault.
and didn't he? And he won like the first month of the Foundry thing.
Yep.
Right? Isn't that what?
Yep,
What was
exactly.
that called again?
Competition.
Genesys Foundry Spotlight.
The Spotlight.
Article by Sam Gregor Stewart over at FFG. He wrote a real nice complimentary article to Keith, and Keith was a great guest on our show.
Oh yeah.
And that supplement truly deserves the spotlight for month 1. I agree.
That's it.
So,
Exactly. No.
Congrats.
Congratulations to him. Our podcast may have helped, and it wasn't maybe the sole factor, but still.
Pretty sure what he had in there did it all on its own. Yay!
That's
Golf clap.
it.
Yay.
I'll fly clap. And another news is that the people at 404 Games, who created the Starcana setting, now released a PDF to help manage things when you're creating a new setting, simply called the Setting Notebook. Available on Drive-Thru-RPG. I got it myself just to look through it. Only $2.95, and it has all the basic stuff that you need when you want to do a setting yourself and what covers it, and a few blank sheets that you can fill out. The only critique I would have was more an aesthetic on my end. They use some bright colors of bright red and yellow, and maybe they could have toned that down. Maybe use a print-friendly version. or maybe just use the same colors that the core book uses, blue and orange and a bit of gray here and there. But
Gotcha.
That's just me.
I'm surprised you found it. Do you know what 404? Oh, yeah, okay, that's right, you guys. So HTML status code 404 is not found. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure
that's what it means. But I did find it. So
you did find it. Yay! Awesome.
So there you go.
I think I need a translator.
Yes.
That's technical speak for their Tonys.
That's it. Tony, just press reset.
Gonna move your bits and bytes and
okay.
whatever.
Bye.
Just do a power reboot.
Awesome. Well,
All right,
good,
so
dude.
I have no listener feedback I want to highlight. We did get some, and we'll get to it next episode, but we've got such a busy show. I'd like to devote as much time to that as possible today. So skip me. Moving on.
All right. Well, let's get into our next section of the show then, real quick.
Welcome to 50 Pieces of Awesome. This is where Chris uses his internet foo, goes out, and wrangles up something special to share with you folks. Today, he's got something futuristic, cool,
Yes.
sci-fi-ish. What you got, bud?
It's out there a ways, if you want. Not a galaxy far, far away or anything like that. But I'm talking about the Halo Genesis setting by Macho Madness that I found out on the Genesis forums, and it's like 45 pieces of awesomeness. I like it because I played through a couple of the first couple Halo games, right?
45 pieces or pages?
Pages, pages of awesome. That's right. Don't want to cheat him on the 50 pieces of
don't
awesome.
Cut the man his
Don't
extra 5 pieces short.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. First off, I have to say, playable Covenant races. Hello, that's a win for me personally. Yeah. And then, so there is something on page 19 I want to describe really quick. It's a great concept that could maybe potentially be used in really any setting, but I liked how he flavored it for this. He's got this table called Skulls, and you roll a D100, and at the very beginning of the session, and these effects take place over the course of this session. So, say you roll a 1 through 15, it's called a grunt birthday party. So for the entire session, grunts explode with confetti on headshots, causing 5 blast damage.
Like it did in Halo 3. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like just something fun to add. So I won't go into really a whole lot of details, but he's got like probably almost maybe a dozen of these different things that you can roll up. One is called Cowbell. For the entire session, the blast quality can be activated with 1 advantage. So okay. I got a FIFA, and really the only solution is more Cowbell. Other than that, I mean, the gear looks pretty solid. Some tweaking. He also has a universe map on his Google Drive up there as well, and a printer-friendly version of this supplement that he created. So
the map looks good.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Now, I'm not one to say like how accurate the map is or anything like that, but it's a map and it looks great, like you said, Stefan. Pretty cool. I don't know if you guys had a chance to take a look at it and have anything else to add, but for the most part, well done. Well done, Macho Madness.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Is that stuff for adversaries and the vehicles that you can find? That's always cool to have already done. So there you go.
Yep. There is an impale quality, which...
Yeah, I wanted to say, you should probably bring that up. That's kind of cool.
That is pretty sweet. Okay, so this is a weapon with the impale quality, can be activated to inflict extra damage. So a spike grenade is fashioned with spikes so that it can stick to people. Now, when I played Halo, I sucked. I would always drop grenades on myself instead of like shooting people. I couldn't throw them; they'd always stick to me. So, upon a successful range light attack with a weapon with the impale quality, you could spend the two advantage to activate it, and the damage inflicted is equal to the impale rating plus your brawn. So you throw it at them, and they, kind of stick in them and whatever. That's cool.
Very nice.
Oh,
That's
nice.
pretty sweet. Yeah.
There we go.
So pretty awesome stuff there.
Yeah,
So-
very nice.
Yeah, man.
Well, there you go. So, Macho Madness, we award you 50 pieces of awesome. Ta-da-da!
Don't spend it all in one place.
No,
Or two.
Or
Start to try to spread it out.
that's it. Spend them to upgrade some of those qualities on your weapons, like get the impale quality on your
on your weapons. Sweet.
on your weapons. There you go.
All right. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Books of Genesis. So open up your core rule book to page 192.
There it is.
And we're going to talk. I know you guys were just waiting in anticipation for it.
Well, that's it. In
Mix it up.
anticipation.
Anticipation. So we are going to go over. So we're going to be talking about the species or archetypes that we've created, that we've come up with for the Epsilon Eclipse, which we're going to talk about tonight. But what we want to go over is the guidelines that we've got in a core rulebook here, starting on page 192. Like going to like the basic profile, make sure we have every piece of that, and then modifying that profile and how we do what we do. So, where do we want to start? Let's talk about what makes up a profile for a species or archetype. Who wants to take that one?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tony.
So the basic species profile you start out with, you've got your species characteristics. That's the brawn, agility, intellect, so on and so forth. They've got their wound and strain threshold. And it's usually formatted to be wounds plus brawn,
Yep.
and strain plus willpower. Their starting XP. So, bing, bang, boom. Those are your first three things you see. And then after that, you've got special abilities and other unique rules. Now, other unique rules might be some special rule that can't be obtained any other way. This rule might be something like amphibious. So you're going to write the rule in for them being amphibious and so on, what it means.
Gotcha.
Just to provide that information right there. So, and it's the simple rule to start off. It says right here with your characteristics, the simple rule you start off with your 6 characteristics is you're going to want 4 of them to start with a value of 2, 1 to start with a value of 1, and 1 to start with a value of 3. That's your baseline. Your brawn and willpower starting at, your wounds and strain starting at 10 plus brawn and 10 plus willpower, respectively. And your starting XP is 100. That's your base.
Yep.
That's what you start with, and then you can tweak from there.
Cool.
And it goes into that.
Well, there you go.
Someone else want to take that part?
Sure, I'll go next.
Okay.
So then you start modifying, tweaking, make them a little bit more special, unique. So they make some suggestions here about modifying, keeping in mind how many experience points each of these benefits could cost. So, for example, they say, let's say you wanted to make an average human. So, the characteristics, for base humans all start at 2. Is basic. If you lowered the 3 in our framework to a 2, I don't know. I don't think I'm explaining it that quite right.
Well, basically, what they said is you start off with 100 XP with one characteristic at a 30, one characteristic at a 1. So if you want to go... a 3. No, you have one at a 3, and you have one at a 1. Everything else is at 2. If you want to put everything... If you want to make that 1 a 2 and that 3 a 2, well, you grant them back the 30 XP that it costs to go up to... to make the 2 to a 3, and then when you spend the 20 to put that 1 to a 2, and your net gain is 10 XP, and that's why your normal humans, your commoners start with 110 XP, because you kind of get that extra 10 from the difference of putting all the characteristics at 2. So Mm-hmm. And then if you want to increase or decrease the strain threshold, instead of being like if you want a 12 in brawn and a 10 in your willpower to start with, that's worth about 5 experience points. So that's kind of, so they kind of go into a little bit of those baseline suggestions to keep in mind. And then single rank in a skill is worth 5 XP. If it starts at a skill 3 or higher, it's worth about 10 XP. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Basically.
And I think also, even though it's not listed here, if it allows the character to add that skill as a career skill, it should be considered basically 10 XP.
I would say so too.
That's kind of the rule that I've seen used.
That's cool.
Now,
thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, man.
It did talk about increasing and decreasing wound threshold.
Yes. Yep.
And so, likewise, when you increase and you decrease your wound threshold by 2, or the strain threshold by 1, it's worth about 5 XP.
Yep.
If you increase the wound threshold by 4 or more, or strain threshold by 2 or more, it's worth about 15 XP. Now, we say about because these modifications don't have any exact science. It's kind of a tweak.
Right.
But the one rule of thumb that I use is if you're going to raise one, lower the other by an equal amount, and it balances out. So if you're going to give think a species would have a little bit more willpower, you want them to have an 11, say, then you're going to lower their wounds to a 9.
Yeah.
That balances it out. Now, if you say, well, I want them to be unbalanced, that's where you come into the expenditure of XP.
Right. And then you could think of the rank, the tier 1 talents of toughened and grit. They're worth 5 XP. You want to, and so toughened increases your wound threshold by 2. If you buy a second one, that's going to be 10 more XP. So that's where they kind of get that 15 XP for. And if you buy grit, you get your wound. I think that's +1, right? To your
+1, yeah.
To your strain. So same thing there. What Tony's talking about. So that's kind of where they got that number from. So.
Well, yeah, and I guess focusing one over the other, strain or versus wounds, sort of works with the type of archetype that you're working on. If something will be relying a lot on social interaction or spell casting, may have more strain and less wound thresholds because they'll be more fragile. They're focusing on their social skills or intellectual skills. Whereas, someone who's of course more of a fighter, the strain might not be as important, but they'll definitely need to be able to take some more hits. So a higher wound threshold is better.
Absolutely.
So that helps determine what kind of species, or archetype you're working on.
And that kind of goes into the next section there, Stefan. You're touching on the species, the focus of it. Are they going to be more social, more explorers, or certain skills and characteristics? Your archetypes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like a Wookiee would be much more physical compared to a human, or a Jawa. Jawas might be much more agile, nimble, whereas the Wookiee might be a little bit more clumsy, not totally a klutz, but he'll be much stronger.
But they're both mechanically inclined, so they can both have a rank in mechanics to start out.
Yeah.
But whereas you're going to see a vastly different stat line on things like their brawn
Yeah.
and their willpower.
Right.
And then there's wounds and threshold accordingly. Or
That's
wounds and
it.
strain threshold accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yep.
So, a little thing it mentions here in the wound and strain threshold section here. Keep in mind that when determining your wound and strain thresholds, do not forget to add the brawn and willpower. So if your species has a starting brawn of 3 and their wound threshold is going to be a minimum of 3 higher, automatically. And so when you're making a species, you want to keep the wound and strain thresholds between the values of 10 and 15.
Gotcha.
So if you've got a species where you're going above those values, you may want to increase the XP hit to them.
Yep.
So if you're building a species, say, that has a 13 brawn or 13 wound threshold and a starting brawn of 3, that's going to give them a total value of 16 wounds as a starting character before they spend any XP.
Exactly.
You may want to hit them for an extra 5 XP in the starting XP.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah, to
rule of
represent
thumb.
that extra couple of points more,
Yeah.
as if they got the toughened talent already.
And of course, the final recommendation, which this keeps balance in the game, rarely ever should you see a species with a high willpower and a high brawn.
Right.
They both, or a low of each.
Mhm.
They should both average out to somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So if one's a little higher than the other, one's a little lower than the other.
Yeah,
Right.
or they're both equal at least. So,
Yeah. Yep.
All right. But here's where the tough part comes in.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this is the part we really want to kind of talk about, because this is where species and archetypes get their bread and butter.
yeah.
And that's those unique abilities. How do you determine how much a unique ability costs? What's the
Yeah,
they give us a few examples.
well, exactly, because
Yeah,
you're not
they're
always human, so sometimes you're interested in playing the non-humans. You want to play the dwarf, the elf, the robot,
Yep. Yep.
the little floating alien.
Yeah, and you can, and these are great for giving you just a kind of a baseline and kind of where to go if you have similar abilities that are maybe special circumstances. You might not give them as much of an XP hit on it. Like I think there was the one like for dark vision, you can remove up to 2 setback dice due to darkness when you're making skill checks, and it's only 5 XP, but it's fairly situational. Whereas,
and
yeah,
it's fairly situational, and it mimics something that a tier 1 talent can do.
exactly.
Using the talents as your rule of thumb, for lack of a better phrase, but your rule of thumb. So, knack for it removes 2 setback dice from a certain skill check. Dark vision is a little bit more broad. It does it to any skill check, but it only does it in the dark.
Yep.
So that's 50% of the time maximum. And so it's situational like that, and it mimics a tier 1 talent, 5 XP.
Right.
Well, exactly. Darkness will not affect all your skill checks if you're just trying to, remember what you did, or like a knowledge history roll. Well, that darkness doesn't really come into play. But if you're trying to spot what is written on the back of the wall in the dark, okay, maybe then dark vision might be useful.
That's right. And then you've got those abilities that are basically always on, will always come into play, basically like regeneration. Right? I mean, this one is interesting. I mean, you heal an additional wound over when you're natural rest. You don't recover an additional wound when you're getting first aid or anything, but you can regrow your limbs. And this is worth 15 XP, which is great. If somebody disarms you, not like knocking your arm out, literally, then it'll go back.
Yeah, when you're in a bar and, some old guy with a lightsaber just chops your arm off.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. And then, like, natural weapons, I want to comment on those. So it mentions claws here. So if you have, like, a claw or a bite, or in my case, a different kind of attack that you made, it's usually about 5 XP. It's going to do the base damage is going to be equal to a stat plus 1. It's going to have an average crit rating of 3. Now, tweaking those stats a little bit, increasing the crit rating or the amount the crit rating is needed to, or increasing the damage, you'll want to lower the other one to keep it balanced.
True.
So if you increase the damage, you'll want to increase the
crit rating.
Critical.
Right.
If you decrease the damage, you can decrease the amount of advantage needed for the critical. Sorry.
Right.
That keeps them balanced. Or it may cost more than 5 XP. Let's say you want to have a physical attack that does more damage and has an easier crit and has some special abilities. Then dial that puppy up to a 10 XP ability.
That's right. If you want to give that claw attack like a Pierce 1 or maybe a Pierce 2, I'd say maybe a Pierce 2. You can keep the damage as it is, the crit as it is, but give a Pierce 2. I'd make it 10 XP.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because you're effectively doing 2 more damage most of the time if they're wearing armor, right, to kind of get through the soak. So
I'll have an excellent example later on about one of the races I created with the help of Tony. So yesterday about that. So we'll get into it later.
And then on the flip side, there is an ability here called Exotic Atmosphere Breather, meaning your character can't survive without this piece of gear, which effectively gimps them. So in this case, you get to add 10 XP to your starting experience points. So, that's kind of cool. There might be other examples of that, like maybe one-armed. maybe you're playing that peg-legged, what do you call it? Shipwright.
Well, like a flip side to, let's say, dark vision, you could have like drow are susceptible to bright lights.
Oh yeah, there you go.
They're disadvantaged when they're in bright lights. Well, then they have setback that they cannot remove.
Light sensitivity. Yes.
Light sensitivity. But when they're in the dark, they get their full advantage. So that could be 2 things that balance each other out.
Yep,
that's right.
Another thing, if it provides them setback dice to a skill, 1, 2 setback dice to a skill check for a particular type of check. For instance, we'll use the fearsome ability here as an example. This species is feared in societies other than its own, as members add to charm, deception, leadership, negotiation. So it's a whole bunch of skills that gives them a setback die. But it also a little bit gives them something good. To coercion, they'll get a boost die. You do something like that where you build an ability that gives them a little bit of something cool for a heavier cost. It's going to gain them some XP. It's going to give them 5 XP overall.
Yeah.
So you can balance species with their abilities and still end up with a real good mix of talent or special abilities. But what I'd say is, if you're going to build a species with special abilities, unique abilities, keep them to 3 or 4. You get more than 3 or 4 special abilities and you start bogging down the characters. Unless, you've got like your 5th one is a negative that's going to balance something big out or whatever.
Right.
But 3 or 4, don't get more involved than that. You're really going to capture your species' essence in the overall stat block. You don't need to give it a bunch of abilities to make it unique.
Yeah, I mean, you can give it and I think in all of these, you'll give them a bonus skill, right? A rank in a skill that right there tells them, hey, this is kind of what they're focused in. And then a couple other abilities to really kind of give them the flavor that you want. And not every character would probably want, like, if you're creating a character that has a, like this Wookiee, right? Yeah, they're probably going to have the Wookiee Rage ability. But he's probably going to be like a celebrity. So he'll probably be your face man, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody might create that kind of a character, that's kind of a cool idea, maybe, Tony?
Well, I had to struggle a bit like that with my Dragonstar campaign, where I wanted to do the half dragons. The half dragons have, with the 3.5 edition book that it's based off of, a lot of abilities. Gotcha. Yes, okay, they balance it out by having a level hit. You start as if you're three or four levels higher. But in Genesys, I didn't want to go through all the abilities of being they've got this bonus on brawn. They've armor, natural armor, blah blah blah. So I condensed it to a few abilities like scaly hide, some claws, a bit of elemental resistance, yes, and a breath weapon.
Cool.
So, yeah, they do start with a lot less experience than everyone else, but some decent stats as well, nothing too out of the ordinary. But then they can get some of these abilities better, like improve their own breath weapon later on.
That's cool.
So just need talents for that. So,
and that is another way that you can create a system, if you want, to where they can buy the things with their XP. Maybe you've got a race that is very diverse, and you want to capture that diversity. Have some things that they can buy, and we'll have an example of that later with the races that I created.
Yes, there you go.
So speaking of which, do we want to get into that right now?
I had
one more?
One last thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is that you're not tied down to the 100 starting XP mark. The FFG proved it themselves when they did the Shadow of the Beanstalk setting. They raised that to 120 for a human instead of 110, and so they gave everybody a little bit of a power boost, of a little more XP to start, and that's because they hit everyone right from the get-go. Every player they hit with a negative on the favor that they owe.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's true.
So it balances out, I think. So if you have a mechanic like that, that's going to be like a setting rule or something like that you want to toss in there, that's something that's going to hit every character, feel free to give them a 5 or 10 XP bump.
Well, that's it. Maybe like in Shadow of the Beanstalk, knowledge and the internet is so prevalent that people do get, maybe more knowledge, more easily, as opposed to medieval times where not everyone would have access to schooling and.
There's nothing wrong with, in your setting, you've given everybody and this is outside the scope of this, but everybody gets one rank in knowledge education or whatever it is, because there's formalized schooling and everyone's required to go through it, whether that be whatever, that's for instance, I comes to example, like you're doing a school setting like the ETU or Harry Potter.
Oh, there you go.
You toss in an education credit that everybody has that does a rank in education.
Right. Or if you're doing,
everyone's going to have.
Yeah, maybe you're doing a military-based themed campaign. Maybe give everybody like a knowledge warfare rank.
For knowledge warfare 1.
Yeah, something like that.
And that can be done in the species archetypes right in the get-go, and it grants it right at the very beginning to all the species, or it could be something that you do later in the careers or the skill section. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
So, Chris, this is your section of the show, buddy. You get to pick who goes first.
I want to hear about these insects.
All right. The Zol. That's the race.
Zol. See, I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. So the
Zol.
Zol. All right, Stefan.
So they are my race that I worked on. I have to admit that Tony helped me a little bit yesterday. I was sort of stuck for a few ideas and wanted some feedback.
That's
so he helped me with fleshing it out. Exactly. So
I made it extra fleshy.
That's it. All right. So
not fitness. Sorry.
So the Zol are an insectoid race from a lush jungle world. There are multiple species that have evolved into a loose symbiotic relationship, and that greatly benefits all of them. So it's better for them to work together than separately for survival. So they're not a hive community, but they do work together for survival, aid, advancement, and evolutionary purposes. There are no kings or queens. So when the urge to mate arrives, a specific Zol seeks out a mate for the suitable type, and they court, and then they proceed with the mating process. That'll be another section, another supplement, another chapter.
Apparently, all right. Moving on.
So
That'll be the private rooms chapter of the Epsilon Eclipse book.
exactly.
Yeah.
A special appendix. Appendix 69.
Appendix, not appendage. Jeez.
Yeah.
So one trait I wanted all of them to have, because they are an insect race, without going too complex, is that all Zol have chitinous skin, basically a hard carapace. So their exoskeleton grants them all a +1 to their soak value.
Cool.
Now, then I break them up into 6 different types. So the first one I came up with is the Zol Hoku. Mm-hmm. The most common Zol. They are very much beetle-like in look a little bit, and beetles can vary a lot if you look at our own varieties on Earth. They're a bit shorter than the average human, but brawnier, and they do very well in the roles of laborers, workers, and sometimes warriors as well, grunts especially. So I started them off with a brawn of 2. Agility, intellect, willpower, and cunning a brawn of 4. Agility, intellect, willpower, and cunning of 2, but presence only of 1. Their strain, only 8, plus willpower. And wounds, like we discussed, since these are more physical type of race, they start with 12 plus their brawn, with 80 XP. And the reason why they only have 80 XP is because they have a few abilities, such as one that I named All in a Day's Work. The Hulku start with 1 rank in resilience because they're made tough.
Yep.
They work all day. They run around and build and or patrol, so they have at least 1 rank. Then one little ability I gave them: lift with your joints. So when a Hoku aids others with the brawn-based skills, they upgrade the skill pool instead of just adding a boost die.
Oh, cool.
So they're strong. They work together very well. And then along that same line, they have the strong back. So the encumbrance value of a Hulku starts at 10 plus their brawn instead of 5, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So they can carry a lot. A bit like insects. You hear about ants being able to lift like 50 times their own weight. So,
there you go. That's cool.
Kind of the same idea.
Yeah, these.
Just pack it on.
I think my only comment here is it feels like XP is too high. If they're starting with a brawn of 4 and only one other characteristic, 80 seems a little high.
Well, I could drop it down to 4 to a 3. I mean, it's still a good brawn, and they could still increase it with XP to 4 if they want.
Yeah, that fixes it, I think.
Yeah.
Drop it to 3.
I think so.
Yeah.
That could. Yep.
Perfect. Not a problem there. So there we go. So we'll fix that. And then the next race I have, they're the leaner, longer version of the Hulku, and also have 4 arms. They're the elite warriors and leaders in charge of groups of Hulku. They're named the Zol Holaith. And yes, all my insect races start with the word Zol in front. So
Sweet.
So with these guys being less brawny, more agile, so they have an agility of 3. I did give them also a cunning of 3, but maybe that could be dropped down as well down to 2. So they'll have brawn, intellect, willpower, cunning, and presence of 2, and willpower only of 1. They're easily maybe dominated by the leaders of their collective to follow orders. And as far as strain and wounds, they're not as different. They're a little closer, but not equal. So it's a little bit more strain. They can, since they can take sometimes some social skills like leadership and so forth. 11 plus willpower, and wounds 9 plus brawn instead of 12 of the whole coup. But they're still not weaklings.
Yep. Still
a decent amount. And to represent maybe their sort of combat focus a little bit, they all have what's called the center of gravity. The Holaith all begin with one rank of coordination. They're
nice.
They're very, not disciplined, I would say, but a good hand-eye coordination. And then they also have 4 arms, so they have an extra set of limbs that they can use to perform a second maneuver for free each turn instead of paying an extra 2 strain. But they still can't perform more than 2 maneuvers. They just can perform those 2 maneuvers for free. And they have, since they're a little tall, I see them a little bit like Mantis a little bit.
Yeah.
They have large eyes, so they have very good situational awareness around them. So they start with the talent Heightened Awareness, which can help them and their allies not to be surprised.
That gives them 1 boost die and their allies 2? Is that what that one is? The Heightened Awareness? I think something like that.
I wanted to copy it and I forgot what.
Oh, that's all good. That's all good. Now I'm thinking, I actually kind of like the feel of this race being agile and and fairly cunning.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving them both at 3, and with the extra set of limbs and such.
Yeah.
I'd like because you were saying maybe you put 1 back down to 2, but you could probably leave those at 3 and maybe make their starting XP like maybe 80 instead of 85.
Because I think you've kind of balanced that 3 bonus with your lower strain and wound threshold.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think you've
that
kind
could
of
be
balanced that quite a bit. So
that's it. So yeah, I went a little bit by eye again. There's no hard and fast rule. Sometimes I was trying to follow the guidelines.
It's by feel.
Exactly.
Right, it's by feel.
Yep. So there you go. So yeah, you can keep the cunning. I like the cunning at 3, which can help.
Yeah.
Represents maybe their sort of instinct and sometimes some combat tactical situations.
Yeah, dude.
Sure.
All right.
So my 3rd race, the Zszree. These are moth-like Zal. They're the intellectuals, the scientists of their society. And so I can imagine them tall, a bit like you see moth. It seem like they have fur on them, the way they're over their bodies, with long, feathery little antennas above their eyes. And so, yeah, like I said, the intellectuals, they're also the only ones that can possess the psionic powers. So they can choose, they're only ones who can choose to be a part of the Mentari career, as they call it in their society.
Okay.
So, of course, they're a bit more fragile, so they only have a brawn of 1, agility of 2, not incredible because they're focused on their mind power. So intellect of 3, willpower of 3, cunning, and presence of 2. So, of course, since powering their psionic abilities would be important, they've got strain of 12 plus willpower, and only 8, of course, for brawn, plus brawn for wounds. Like I said, they're not combat oriented, not frontline combatants anyway. Mm-hmm. And with their abilities, of course, they're moth-like, so I gave them flight. So they have wings, moth-like, butterfly-like wings. They have the ability of what I call the calm mind. So they all in all have 1 rank in discipline. They're able to calm their mind. They're very organized. Being intellectuals and scientists, that helps.
That makes sense with the psionic powers too, which is based off of discipline. Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, or willpower, I guess, right? Yeah,
it would be willpower, definitely.
Willpower, yeah.
And then their 3rd ability called Eureka. Once per session, a gnoll may spend a story point as an incidental, and this allows them to change the side of one of their intellect-based checks to another side. So as long as the dice doesn't show a triumph or despair. So if a side of a dice, a challenge dice, or an ability dice, is blank or whatever, they can change it to a side that does show a triumph.
Cool. Or maybe one that has a couple of threats, change it to a blank.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
So
that's pretty cool. I still I think maybe the starting XP should probably be 80 on this one too.
Yeah.
As much as fly is some people think that it's
really not a non-ability.
It really isn't.
No, it doesn't allow you to move any faster. It's just
that's why I thought
difficult
85
terrain.
was fine. I
think 85 was
helped
fine?
him.
Okay.
Yeah, I helped him with making the XP selection, and I think because of the low brawn, low wounds together, so you're stacking your low stat with your low
with your low
threshold.
It'll have 9. That's true. It'll have 9 wounds to start with.
And
that's it.
And flight being kind of a non-ability, all it allows you to do is ignore difficult terrain when moving. 85 seems good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally flight might be useful when they need to gain some high vantage point quickly. But
I was just thinking two characteristics at 3 to start with is a lot of starting XP. You know what I mean? Just to start with, which is it's totally cool. It's kind of balanced out by these abilities, it seems to. And like you said, the lower wounds, almost kind of a glass cannon, if you will.
Well, definitely.
The lower wounds, not much of a soak, like a 1 soak, since the brawn is
definitely someone who's going to sit at chicken shit range.
Yeah, baby.
Even with their chitin armor, it's only 2 soak. So they're not going to be.
Yeah.
They're not going to be carrying people or heavy loads either of equipment.
Yep.
Now that's something you could do if you want to give them some sort of frailness, and really feel balanced, and like that they can only fly carrying a light load.
Yeah.
You may want to reduce their encumbrance threshold to 3 plus their brawn.
Yeah, if they want to fly,
Oh yeah,
definitely.
there you go.
I can modify
That's
that.
Cool. I like that, Tony.
Yeah, I'll add that in.
As part of their flight, winged flight, you could put it in there, however, this flight ability can only be used if they're encumbered with less than 3 plus their brawn.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Cool.
And that also further limits, they're not carrying around a lot of stuff. They're not making, it's really about just getting them to safety.
Yeah, and staying at chicken shit range.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Cool, dude.
All right, so I'll just put a little note there, and I'll finish it up later. All right, and then comes kind of my favorite race that I came up with, because at first I thought the Zol would be a hive mind, where they would almost have like a communication even at distance, but it seems like you think too much of that automatically with insects, the insect race, and I want to step away a little bit. But this is kind of still a nod to that. So the Zol Hakim are unique among the Zol. So instead of being one single entity, they're a cluster of 3 smaller ant/termite-like creatures that share a mind link amongst each other.
Okay.
Not with the whole other Hakims, although that could help out if they still maybe have an empathy that could work out, but we'll see. But at least a mind link amongst their 3 brothers or sisters, their cluster. So individually, they're very small. They have a silhouette 0. They call them small buggers. Wink, wink, nod, nudge. So each one is a silhouette 0.
Nice.
I was kind of inspired, like I told Tony, about certain sources like the worms in Men in Black, and even the alien in the Solo movie was disguised with the trooper armor and suit. So I could imagine these 3 little buggers stacked one on top of each other, dressed up to look a bit like a human.
I
Nice.
told him, I says it reminds me of the pill bugs from A Bug's Life. The
Okay.
three little circus dudes. But anyhow, go on.
Yeah, they could definitely, high agility, some athletics in there, and they can do acrobatic stuff and flip one into the other end and do a trapeze act kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Up, up, up. So their attributes reflect a little bit of this. So I started them with brawn only of 1 because they are small. They're not focused on strength. Not a presence only of 1 because they don't have a force of personality as much either, but they're very agile with an agility of 4.
Okay.
Intellect and willpower of 2, average, but they can be fairly clever, so with a cunning of 3. So, and with strain and wounds, since they're 3 different individuals, they don't start with, let's say, 12 or 10 plus an attribute. I divided it by 3, basically. So strain is only 4, plus willpower for each Hakim, and wounds only 3, plus brawn for each Hakim. So each Hakim has only about 4 wounds each.
But for the player, it'll
the
have
player
12.
controls.
You'll have
exactly
12 wounds to start with.
12 wounds for your player character, your character.
And then your
Just
willpower,
divided.
and then you'll have 18 strain threshold. Basically.
Yeah, that maybe I'll.
It feels a little
down to
high.
3 or 2.
Maybe if you do, okay, so if we do strain 3 plus willpower, wounds 2 plus brawn, that gives you 9 wounds total, right?
Yeah.
For the guy, and then you have 15. Yeah, so you're kind of on the low end with your wounds, but on the high end for the strain, which feels pretty good.
Yeah, I think that would be better. So 2 plus brawn for the wounds and 3 plus willpower for the strain. That sounds a little bit better. I hadn't even calculated the strains. Like, oh yeah, that's 8.
18 was a little high. Yeah.
It was a little high. Yeah. So there you go. So that makes a bit more sense. Thank you. So apart from being small buggers, they're also sneaky. So they start with 1 rank in stealth.
Cool.
They have their mind link, so all 3 of the Hakim, forgot to copy, correct the name.
Copy paste there. Yeah, I've never had that before.
No. So all 3 Hakim can communicate with each other through their mind link up to a range of extreme range.
Okay.
This communication is telepathic and allows one Hakim to see, hear, feel, and know what the other 2 experience. Of course, beyond this range, then the mind link is temporarily lost with that one who's separated.
Is there a limitation? Now you say that it's telepathic. Is there a limitation as to if like one is underground and the other one isn't? Is there a limitation to that?
I think that's an environmental grounds for a GM to provide setback dice.
Some setback to see if they can do like maybe some kind of discipline check, perhaps, or whatever
Sounds
skill.
Like GM discretion.
Exactly.
Man, that is cool. The flavor of these guys.
There's more.
There's more.
Yeah.
All right. Oh my God!
thing.
The name of this next one is great.
Yes. because I thought they are mind linked. What happens if one of them does go too far away? Because they were born mind linked. They're used to their company. So their 4th ability is called separation anxiety. So at PC creation, you roll an extra flaw for the cluster, and this flaw will only manifest when at least 1 or more Hakim are beyond their extreme mind link range. Okay. And all of them experience this. So even if 2 of them are close to each other, the 3rd one goes beyond range. All 3 of them suffer this flaw.
Now, how often do you want this to come into play?
Well, that always depends, I guess.
Well, I think
groups have a tendency to not to separate the party.
Well, but think about this. So you have 3 unique Hakims here in your cluster /PC. right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it takes so when your PC takes a third of the hit point of the wounds, what happens? There's separation.
Always have it.
There's separation anxiety there, right? Because
Yeah.
does that third one
Exactly.
get killed or knocked out?
Incapacitated.
Incapacitated.
If he's incapacitated, then he's lost communication. They don't know what, even if they know what happens, like, oh no, Hakim 3 is down.
Yeah, so you might want to throw this in your note here. It says this flaw only manifests when one or more Hakim are beyond a mind link range, or when one or more are incapacitated.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's when I said, how often do you want this to come into play? Because with such a low wound or strain threshold for an individual, they can come into a play a lot when they become incapacitated.
Then you know what? I'd say leave the wounds at 3 plus brawn because that'll give them a wound threshold of 12.
Right.
Leave your strain threshold 3 plus willpower, gives them a strain threshold of 15. You're already above the thing of like what we've said, like the starting, right?
Yeah.
I like it. I agree with you, Chris.
It works good.
I like the 3 wounds
And 3
plus brawn.
Yeah.
And I like the 3 willpower plus brawn. It keeps it the same, so they're identical.
Yeah.
It's just that their willpower makes them a little bit more strain threshold.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes them perfect, dude. This was my favorite before Stefan and I created his 6th one last night. But we'll get to his 5th one first.
Yeah. So I'll add that when one of them is incapacitated as well. So I would see a lot of role-playing opportunity for the player to amongst his 3 little aspects, plus interaction with other species.
Oh my god!
Others all.
and infiltration and like a spy. Like these guys can be like great spies and infiltrators, right? Oh my god!
That's it.
Sweet. All right.
I would have to though to determine, because each one could have their own action though, so that would allow that one player to have 3 actions every round. That's something
I don't know.
I'd say they take one action and one maneuver per round, just like anyone else.
Yeah.
But because they share the same mind space.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So while one is doing a skill, the others are doing their thing, but they're not active as much. Yeah, they can maybe do each one can do a maneuver.
Yeah, there might have to be like a special little write-up for these guys.
Yeah.
Guidelines
just the
for
actions.
taking actions, taking maneuvers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a description, and for GMs, help them with how the mind link can work in a combat situation, in a social situation. There's some hints.
And then that could inspire specific talents that they could have that could help them, maybe act a little bit more, but not without unbalancing. Maybe taking a second action, but with penalties, with more difficulty. But we'll see.
Yep, we'll see. That's cool, though.
Anyway. All right, next one. Zol Hokal. The Hokal are very tall, regal, suave, and the manipulative upper class.
Did you say Rico Suave? No, Regal and
Yes.
Suave.
Regal. They're not kings or queens, but rather just the nobles, the politicians, entertainers as well of the Zol. They look very resplendent with multicolored, shimmering, multi-hued chitin, and their eyes, which are nice and bulbous, but reflect all kinds of lights.
Pretty bugs.
Yes, exactly. Since they focus on their appearance and their presence, they have a presence of 4. Agility, intellect, willpower, and cunning of 2, and then of course brawn of only 1, because they're much more about the way they look.
Mm-hmm. They're fancy.
Exactly. So, of course, their strain will be. I wrote it down inversed, but their strain would be 12 plus willpower. Their wounds would be 8. Forgot to inverse that.
Okay.
That would make more sense. And then they've got their special abilities. So the heights of power is what I called it. Since the Hokal tower above all the other Zol and most other sentients, they are silhouette 2. They're not big and bulky, but they're just very, very tall.
Yep. With all the advantages and disadvantages that come with that.
That could bring, exactly. And they're bred to lead, so all Hokal begin with one rank in leadership.
Okay.
And the final ability is, since their presence is very much their most important attribute, they have what's called sensitive feeler. So they do have antenna, a little bit like the my other ones, the Hinal, the empaths. Also long feathery feelers that allow them a bit of an empathic ability. They're not psionic like the Hinal, but at least lets them sense other people's sense of emotions, sense of surface thoughts, so they can sometimes use that to their advantage. So it gives them a boost to their social skills.
All social skills?
All social skills, but only a boost die.
A boost
within
die.
short range.
All of them.
Within a short range only.
I don't know when you would be doing social skills outside of short range, though. You would be, but for the most part, they're all going to be done. It's going to be, yeah.
But those feelers at least only can give them a boost die at short range. So beyond that, there's too much interference. Like, no. And finally,
but before we go on, I feel like that's a little powerful.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because you're given a boost die to 4 skills. At least 4 skills, right? That will probably be used all the time. Most of the time. I'd say 90% of social skills will be done at short range. Unless you're over communications, those kinds of things. Right. And with the presence being so high as well, I feel 85 experience points is too high. I don't know. It just feels like...
Would it be balanced if they could... It requires a little bit of concentration. It requires that they spend some strain to do it.
Yeah, that could be a...
Strain doesn't suck. I like that.
Yeah.
So for
I hate adding a check. Oh, if you do this check, then you get this ability. Nah, I like the strain. Oh. The strain's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Just 2 strain, and they can use it.
2 strain, and you can, boom, turn it on.
So they can't spam the hell out of it on every social roll, but they could do it. They could reach out, read those emotions, surface thoughts.
I think I think it should be maybe an incidental. It shouldn't even be like a maneuver or anything like that. I think it's you spend a couple of strain as an incidental to read the surface thoughts.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the skill check.
And they have a great strain pool, so it fits. Yeah, and it keeps them balanced.
I like that. That feels good. Yep. That makes it feel. I hate to use balanced, but it feels more on line of what you're kind of going for here. Yeah, and I like that. I like it.
Now keep in mind, folks, our listeners are listening to all this. Mm-hmm. We have these are not play tested. What we're doing is we're building these races. We've some pre-built. Yeah. We are even tweaking them as we're going.
Yeah, that's it.
But we're going to play test these, and eventually we'll decide. Well, maybe this needs a tweak.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly, because we created all our races separately. Chris did his, and we want, Tony did his. So,
and you guys worked on these a bit last night, and I like. We like sharing this dialogue with all of you out there to let you know what kind of questions we ask each other, bring up, hey, this doesn't necessarily feel right, it feels too powerful, not powerful enough, or whatever. Just to kind of give you guys an insight as to kind of how we do it, and maybe that'll help you guys, if you guys are creating your own as well. So.
Like, until tonight, I didn't think about how many, actions Hakeem could use if there are 3 entities. Each one could do a skill check. Technically, if they all have their own mind.
Well, technically, if they have that, I don't. We'll have to come back to that. We'll have to come back to that.
A min-maxing player would think, oh, I can do 3 actions, so each of my Hakeem grab a blaster and they shoot.
Oh, trust me. If you want me to put these in front of one of my players, my buddy Eric, who basically plays in all of my face-to-face games, breaks shit. And even video games he'll break. And if he can break this, awesome. More power to him. So,
so it's a good thing that we were talking about this. It made me think about this question, so I'll take that in consideration.
The way that I was thinking about it, Stefan, if we go back to the Hakeem real quick, I'm thinking of them as it's a one PC.
Yeah.
But the fact that it could split up its brain and its senses 3 ways, right, coming in from 3 completely different areas, makes that such a neat character to potentially play.
Yeah.
But you still have to kind of it's still at one PC, restrained by your maneuver, your action, more maneuvers for strain, those kinds of things. So
that's it.
But but it's great dialogue and good. I like thinking of this stuff. So
good.
Sweet.
Good. All right. So finally, my 6th race, the Zal Hotar. That. Thank you, Tony, for helping me a lot with this one.
Was this your favorite one there, Tony, before you started?
That's his favorite, yeah.
All right, this is your favorite?
So the Hotar are, thankfully, not the most common of the Zal.
Okay.
A blessing in the eyes of the other Zal, as their demeanor tends towards being somewhat mean, short-tempered, prone to berserk rage in some Hotar. This anger, of course, tends to set things on fire, as they are able to squirt out a highly flammable liquid from their mandibles.
I like the name then. Hot tar makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
So they spit out hot tar? Or just hot flammable?
Liquid, but they're still, it's maybe a black liquid.
Hot
sticky.
tar. It's hot tar.
So sometimes they do look a little bit like the Hulku, beetle-like.
Okay.
They're basically fire beetles.
Sweet. Like it.
So for them, they're a little bit like the Hulku, not quite as strong. So Brawn 3, Agility 3 is pretty good. Willpower 1, and then Intellect, Cunning, and Presence of 2.
I just read the name of your first ability. We'll get there in a moment.
That's it. So Strain, 11 plus Willpower, Wounds 9 plus Brawn. Not too bad. They're good fighters, but the Hulku will be the big bads for to take wounds. So the first ability they've got, of course, Burning Sensation. The Hotar are able to spit a flammable liquid from their mandibles. This has the following stats. So they use, right now we've determined skill range light. That may change, but so far range light. Damage is a base of 2 plus their brawn. And the crit rating is 4. Medium range. Burn of 2, and I gave them Prepare 1 as an ability because it sort of takes a bit of time to squirt that energy. Yeah,
they need
a little
to
bit. In. Or whatever they have to do to prepare that squirt, and then it takes 2 strain to use.
Okay.
And only usable once per encounter.
Okay, question. Why 2 plus brawn and not like a straight damage rating like you would say like a blaster or a...
Because they're squirting it.
Yeah. It's part of their body. How powerful they are physically.
They're squirting it. Okay.
It's part of their anatomy, so the stronger they are,
they gotta squeeze it on there.
The stronger they are, the more
potent it is.
The more potent it is.
Yeah. And then because it's fire, they're used to fire. They've got heated environments. So all Hotar begin with 1 rank in survival, especially for surviving out in the wilderness. And then their final ability, I can stand the heat, is what I called it. The Hotar are able to withstand greater than normal heat and temperature, high temperatures, and receive a boost die to resist harsh, hot environments and heat-based attacks. Or if they don't need to resist, they'll simply add 2 more points of soak versus heat-based attacks. If it's a straight, if another Hotar shoots fire at them, it's like, yeah, I'm used to it.
Nice.
So those are my Zal.
Cool, dude.
I think you did a great bit of work on that. An insect race is not an easy thing to do. And you tackled I think the hardest of the races, to be honest with you. And I think you did a great job of capturing an insectile race with a lot of variety in it, and 6 good archetypes in there.
Yeah,
Good job, Stefan.
Because
Well
there is a
done, man.
lot of variety in the insect world. When you look at specials and nature specials, like wow. So,
Yeah. Well done, man.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
like that. That's well done, dude.
There you go. I'll put some additional notes in there later on or tomorrow with what we discussed, you guys
Okay.
and I. There you go.
So that was kind of a brain burner.
Yep.
So
Tony needs a break. What?
Well, I think we'll take a little bit of a break from the really hard thinking ones, because I know Tony's got some pretty sweet ones. I'd like to kind of do the humans, only because it'll give everybody kind of a break, because we'll have things that are similar to what we have here.
Right,
Then we'll get into
familiar.
Tony's. How about that?
That
Sounds
good.
great.
So I was in charge of taking up the human masses here, and what I wanted to do with these guys and gals is not necessarily pick, say, a planet that they're from and create 6 different humans from one planet. So what I did is I took one characteristic like brawn, created a human feel around that from a planet on a certain era, and we could kind of go from there, I think. Okay. So like I said, so humans in the Epsilon Eclipse multiverse come from different planets and eras. Some excel at warfare, some at exploration, and some have started to unlock the secrets of the multiverse. But most are just trying to survive in their harsh environments. So various types of humans exist, and they excel at specific roles in their society. Here are a few. So the first race we have are the Norskas. They're a gray-skinned warrior race focused on conquering their frozen tundras on an icy medieval-era planet named Norska. There we go. Those are your Vikings. Didn't really, not much of a stretch of the imagination there. And these guys are based on the laborer archetype in the core rulebook, and I tweaked it a little bit. So as a laborer, you have the brawn 3, willpower of 1. Everything else is at a 2. Your wounds are at the higher end with the 12 plus brawn. Your strain is at the lower end, 8 plus your willpower. Starting XP is 90. It's a little lower because I gave them an extra ability here. The beginning skills on all of these, I gave every human variant here a choice between 2 skills to choose from. So for these guys, we have athletics or brawl. Makes sense. Same thing. Can't raise them above 2 during character creation. Took the tough as nails. But I I added Berserker Rage. So when a Norska has suffered any wounds, they deal 1 extra damage to brawl and melee attacks. And when they're critically injured, they instead deal plus 2 damage. Sounds fairly familiar. That's basically Wookiee Rage. Okay? Mm-hmm. So those are the Norskas. The next ones we have are the Aquilar. They're blue-skinned amphibious race, focused on exploring the vast oceans on a modern era water planet named Aquilion. And these guys are based on the Acrobat archetype that I grabbed from the Inquisition setting. Tweak these guys just a little bit as well. The stats, 1 in brawn, 3 in agility, and in the rest are 2. And then wounds and strain are fairly balanced. Brawn is 9, or wounds are 9 plus brawn. Strain is 10 plus willpower. Starting XP is 95. These guys start with either coordination or stealth.
Okay.
They have the deft evasion ability that they had created in the Inquisition setting there. So they could spend a story point as an out-of-turn incidental when they're targeted of a combat check. If they do, the difficulty of the check becomes an opposed check against their coordination skill, which is pretty cool little ability there, I like. And it's a once-per-session ability. Kind of cool. And they are amphibious, so they breathe underwater without penalty and never suffer movement penalties for traveling through water. I figured that's only a 5-point hit to the starting XP because it's fairly situational. They might not always be on a water planet or have to go underwater. Mm-hmm. So an ability they may use, but maybe not all the time.
Okay.
All right. So then the next group, I actually did some searches on the internets for things to come up with some of these names. So the Zimlayans, they're a crimson-skinned scientific race focused on innovation and invention in a Renaissance-era planet named Zemlya. And that is Ukrainian for Earth. Well,
Nice.
Okay.
based on the intellectual from the core book.
Okay.
So intellect 3, agility 1, opposite of the Norska's lower end of the wounds, so 8 plus brawn, higher end of strain, 12 plus willpower. Starting XP of 10. They start with either one rank in, and we've picked knowledge, science is one of our skills we've picked for our setting, or mechanics.
Okay.
And then using brilliant, they can spend a story point. Their next check, they can use their intellect on their next check instead of the linked skill. And I've added, and then the ability that I added called kit bashing. They start with one rank in inventor. Pretty simple.
Nice.
And that's a second tier talent. So I gave him a 10 experience point hit on that because it's a second tier talent. So
Right.
all right.
No, makes sense.
All right, now we have the Tadarians. They're a green-skinned predatory race focused on surviving a deadly prehistoric era forest planet named Tadaris, using their cunning. And these guys are based on the survivalist from the Inquisition setting. And and Tadaris is Arabic for terrain. By the way.
Okay, nice.
So these guys, they're the cunning folks. So they have cunning of 3, presence of 1, everything else is at a 2. And then their wounds and strain are balanced at 10 plus brawn, 10 plus willpower, respectively. Starting XP is 90. Their beginning skills, they can either choose perception or survival. Natural instincts is another ability. Once per session, they can spend a story point after making a skill check. If they do, they can re-roll the number of dice, not showing a triumph or despair. Oh, I didn't spell that out. Oops. A triumph or despair up to a number of dice equaling their cunning score. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And that's, again, a once-a-session ability. And then they have Pack Hunter, where they get to add 2 boost dice when assisting others. And I got that from, I believe the Twi'leks have that, or was it
Togruta.
the Togruta have that from Star Wars. So I figured that was because they're surviving. They're more feral, if you will. So cool. All right. So the next race are the Amazoians. They're a tan-skinned race, nomadic race, focusing on surviving a post-apocalyptic era desert planet named Amos, using their sheer force of will. And these guys are based on the dedicated archetype that I saw in the Something Strange setting, because this is they have a pretty neat ability that they created for these guys. These guys are willpower focused of 3, cunning of 1, everything else is at a 2. And again, kind of balanced with wounds and strain. Sorry. Wounds are at 9 plus their brawn. Strain 11 plus their willpower. Starting XP is 95 because one of their abilities is fairly situational again too. Their beginning skill, either 1 in discipline or vigilance. And then the focus ability, once per session, they could spend a story point as an incidental. If they do, they heal a number of strain equal to their ranks and willpower. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And then their special ability, but it's a dry heat because they live in the desert, right? They remove 2 setback dice in arid or hot environments. And that was worth, to me, probably 5 XP. What do you think? Cool.
No,
I like that.
I know I'm kind of flying through these kind of quick, but
they're
just stop
humans.
me.
I mean,
they're humans.
yeah.
Pretty
yeah,
straightforward.
we're fairly common. We're fairly familiar with what humans are. So.
Yeah. So I tried to capture these, and then the last ones, they are the Racanians. They're a purple-skinned noble race focused on winning the commerce wars on a futuristic era city planet named Racanus.
Racanus?
Oh my god. Gonna have to change that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
How about just spell it Racanus?
Racanus. With 2 E's?
Yeah.
Racanus. All right, instead of Racanus. All right, Racanus.
Rectum damn near killed him.
Which basically, Rakenus is Finnish for a building. So, so I figured city, whatever. Anyways, yeah, that's where how my mind works, right? Anyways, so these guys, yeah, they're the noble race. Noble, they have a noble like countenance, if you will. They have a brawn of 1, presence of 3. Balanced between wounds and strain at 10 and 10 plus brawn, 10 plus willpower. These guys are based on an aristocrat from this core book. XP of 95 because I added another ability in there for them. They start with cool or negotiation because winning the commerce wars, right, on this futuristic era city planet, right. I figured to give them negotiation there. The forceful personality, which we're familiar with. Story point as an incidental. Your next skill check, you can double the strain you inflict on somebody. Nice little, nice feel for these guys. I like that a lot. And then their noble countenance is their ability that I added. They get an automatic advantage to all charm checks. And that's worth about 5 XP, I think.
I think it should be 2 skills. An automatic advantage on just charm for noble countenance.
Okay. So
maybe.
do we pick? Do you want them
leadership
to maybe
or negotiation?
Yeah, charm and negotiation would be too good, I think.
Or do we do automatic advantage on 2 of the following skills and there's a list? Or do you just say charm, advantage to charm,
and negotiation? Since negotiation is one of their beginning skill, that could be a good benefit.
There we go.
Synergy.
Perfect.
I would love to see a Racanian with the whole Hokal going head to head trying to negotiate stuff.
Nice. Yeah, there you go. That's good. Yeah, so for this write-up for the humans, not only did I want to create a different feel for just a race, but I wanted to build in other areas for we could build our setting on too, right?
Right.
So right
you
here
gave us room to flesh out some of our setting in there, and I like that. Cool.
Yep. Good. And of course, any one of these races, you don't have to be this archetype to come from Racanus, right? You can have like a laborer type if you want coming from them, but I picked typical archetypes from that you would see from these different planets. Right. So, and they're humans.
Maybe the more common archetypes in Racanus are the
Racanians.
Racanian, sorry.
Yep. Yeah.
Would be the presence, but there could be laborers.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you did a good job. I like the rainbow skin colors. That was kind of cool.
I tried to match the colors with what the feel is. So purple is typically like noble, right? It's kind of a noble
inadvertently.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, all you did, with the exception of your Ammosians and their tan skin, is you copied the dice of Genesys.
Oh my God, you're right. Green, red, blue, gray. Well, already then. Yeah. I did that on purpose.
Yes, that's it. It's all planned.
Absolutely.
No, all kidding aside.
That's cool.
Good job, Chris.
Thanks, bud.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
A human is a very difficult thing to add some variety to, and I think you did a good job of that.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
All right, are you guys ready?
Oh, yeah. Go, Tony.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I did what we called the Taurian herds.
Let's grab this section by the horns.
Yep.
All right.
Well, come on, let's move it along. Come on.
The Torakesh, Torian, in the common tongue, are people of genetically engineered species bred for multiversal expansion and war. Designed by the Cedars, an advanced race of enigmatic energy beings and genetic tinkerers. Torians have strong herding and migratory instincts, accelerated birth rates, and an ingrown hatred for the Ricochet, or the Hive Legions. And, again, I wanted to add some elements to our setting there.
Yeah.
Varied breeds of Torian exist and excel at specific roles in their societies. Here are a few. So I kind of went a similar theme with Stefan. Each one begins with the race Torakesh, but then they have their own racial description. Or the Torakesh Minas, also known as the Minator. They are bullheaded, four-armed, and cunning. The Minas are the architects and crafters of Torakesh enclaves across the multiverse. 2s in all their stats except for cunning and agility. Cunning is 3, agility is 1. Pretty balanced on the wounds and strain, with wounds at 11 plus brawn and strain at 9 plus willpower. Starting XP of 80. Reasoning being for that, of course, they've got some cool abilities. I really piled on the abilities on these guys.
Yeah.
So each one will have a beginning skill. Some of them have choices, like Chris had. Some don't. And these guys, they begin with 1 rank in either skullduggery or mechanics. Again, they're architects and crafters, trap makers, and so on.
Yeah.
Now, every single one of mine will have a natural weapon. These guys have big, long bullhorns that give them a natural gore attack, which will, of course, use their brawl. Does a damage of brawn +1, has a critical rating of 2, and has a special of vicious 2. So that's worth a little bit more XP.
Yep, for sure.
Next, the Minas have vestigial limbs. They have a pair of vestigial limbs that emerge from the front of their rib cage. These limbs provide additional hands for fine motor tasks and grant a boost die to any skullduggery, medicine, or mechanics checks.
Nice.
Also, they can be used to draw small items in combat, allowing the character to draw up to 2 items of 1 encumbrance or smaller as an incidental action.
Makes sense.
Masters of the Labyrinth. Once per session, a Minas may spend a story point to instantly become intrinsically aware of the layout of a single non-sentient structure and cannot get lost unless the layout changes. If the layout changes, they add 2 boost dice to checks used to navigate the structure.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Masters of those mazes, yep.
All right, so that's the Minas.
I saw the Masters of the Labyrinth, and my first reading was Masters of the Universe. I'm like, yes, He-Man is a Minotaur. Oh, no.
I have the power.
That's right.
All right.
Well done, sir.
Next, we have the Torakesh Loxos, also known as Woolitars. These are the mammoth-headed, intellectual, methodical, and scholarly. The Loxos make up the thinkers and healers of the Torakesh enclaves. They are also long-lived, living double the lifespan of other Torians.
Cool.
2 in all stats except for intellect and cunning. Intellect being a 3, cunning being a 1. Very balanced wounds and strain with 10 each, or plus brawn and willpower accordingly. Starting XP of 85. Beginning skill. They choose any 1 knowledge at character creation and gain 1 free rank. Again, as with all the skills in all of ours, never can be trained beyond 2. Their next item they have is a prehensile trunk.
You know, if we go back to the beginning skills real quick, I almost kind of like all knowledge skills being career skills for these guys in a way. Because they're the intellectuals, they're the smart dudes, they remember. And that's it. Not even a free rank, but just all career skills. Maybe. I don't know. Just a thought. I thought there was a species in Star Wars that might have had that. I don't know. For some reason, it popped into my brain for that. We can maybe consider it, but that's cool. I like the one knowledge, obviously.
I hadn't thought of that, but okay. So their prehensile trunk of the Loxos allows them to manipulate objects as dexterously as a third hand. Loxos may choose to wield a light melee or light ranged weapon with their trunk, and do not increase the difficulty for using multiple weapons.
Nice.
As long as in either hand they would, but with their trunk and in one hand they wouldn't. Is that what you're saying? That's what you're saying here. Okay. That's awesome.
Or they could wield, say, they have a big rifle in two hands that they're using a long range, and they're wielding a knife in their trunk.
Yeah.
All right.
Cold Weather Adept. Remove up to 2 setback dice due to cold temperatures and treat their soak as 1 higher for cold-based damage. So to balance them out, I kind of needed something just a little negative. So we've got the lumbering pace. Loxos are always limited to 1 movement maneuver per turn. They may still use talents or strain to use other types of maneuvers, such as aiming.
Right, nice.
They can only move 1 per... Okay, got it.
1 maneuver is covering ground, moving, because they have a lumbering pace. They slow.
Yeah, they are.
Lastly, never forget. Once per session, the Loxos may spend a story point on any skill check to roll a knowledge check instead of the original skill.
Sweet.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
Yes, I remember how we did this back when.
So they're just pulling out. They're just pulling on their knowledge and really everything to do. I know how to pick that lock instead of still go.
That's kind of why I went with just. It's kind of why I went with not giving them all knowledge as career skills.
I see that.
Right.
So.
Oh, works out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next one is kind of a nod to my northern brethren, the Torakesh Emus. That's right, moose tars.
Moose tars.
So the moose-headed, these majestically horned Torakesh are strong-willed and natural psionic adepts.
Ooh.
Emus make excellent leaders, law enforcement officials, judges, and serve as the moral compass of the Taurian herds. That's right. They're morally better than... All right, so they have 2s across the board with the exception of intellect and willpower. Intellect being a 1 and willpower being their strong suit, a 3. They're going to start with a lower wound threshold, 8 plus brawn, but a high strain threshold to power those psionic abilities of 12 plus willpower. Beginning skill, just like our other psionic race, they begin with 1 rank of discipline.
Oh, the XP.
Because
the XP is a little low. It's 75.
It's 75, and that's going to be because they have 3 pretty powerful abilities, or 2 pretty powerful abilities.
Yep.
After their majestic antlers, the Emus antlers are large, imposing, and grant a boost die on all coercion checks. They can also be used as a natural bludgeoning weapon that does damage plus uses their brawl as damage is plus brawn plus 2, has a crit of 4, has a special of inaccurate 1, but also concussive 1.
Right.
They're big old moose horns.
Yeah, they're great panache.
All right.
Nice.
Now come those psionic abilities. So the psychic abilities, we begin with mind shadowing. So the Emus may roll a discipline versus discipline check to follow the perceptions of other beings at short range. Successful check means the Amos perceives as if they were inside that being's head.
Oh, interesting.
So here's a question.
They hear what they hear, they see what they see, they smell what they smell,
right?
And they can maintain this for the entire encounter.
Now,
I didn't put that part in there, but I was going to.
You put these suckers. You have this discipline versus discipline against with the, what was that? The hive mind insect PC.
Mm-hmm.
To have like the 3 different. That would be confusing as fuck.
That would be a very confused Emus.
He's like, what?
Wait a minute, I'm seeing 3 different things. What the hell?
And then their other ability is tied to their mind shadowing. So, Mind Freeze. Once per session, an Emus may spend a story point immediately following a successful mind shadowing check to either make the effect last for a whole day or to make the target enter a trance-like and easily manipulated state, upgrading all social checks against that person for the remainder of the encounter. So that basically, while they're inside someone's head, perceiving their senses, they can choose to spend that story point to either make them a little bit more manipulative, or they can just, hey, I'm going to link my mind to this guy's for the whole day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, when you say upgrading all social checks, that means
Once.
upgrading the difficulty?
Upgrading their
check.
own social checks against that individual.
Yeah.
Making the person
I
more
got you.
susceptible.
More
Yeah, so-
susceptible. Gotcha.
You would upgrade their own social charm check, for example.
Okay. So, next, moving on,
Or me.
the Torakesh Rhynek, or the Rhinotars.
Sweet.
Rhino-headed, impatient, and brutish, the Rhynek are the most combat-capable and warlike of the Torakesh. They are known for making tremendous use of their horns in battle, and strike an imposing threat when in a full charge.
Sweet.
So the Rhynek gets a brawn of 3 and a presence of 1 and 2s across the board. Wounds are 12 plus brawn, and restraint is 8 plus willpower. Starting XP of 80. The Rhynek begin with 1 rank in Brawl. They're warriors.
Yeah.
Period. Okay.
Sweet.
Horn attack. The Rhynek have either 1 or 2 sharp and deadly horns on their snout. That's supposed to be snout, not snot. That can be used as a natural weapon. It uses the Brawl skill. Damage is Brawn plus 1. Crit 3. Special is Sunder.
Ooh, that doesn't suck.
Nice.
I almost kind of like these guys having a damage of maybe plus 2.
Yeah, I thought that too, right as I read it. I'm like, Brawn plus 2, actually. You know what?
Yeah, that makes sense.
These guys are
I'll tweak that.
nasty.
Okay. Thick Hide. Rhynek increase their soak by 2. Simple as that.
That's pretty good.
And lastly, Ferocious Charge. As long as the Rhynek has taken a maneuver immediately before rolling an attack roll with a brawl or melee weapon, he or she may spend 3 strain to add 2 damage and give the attack the knockdown weapon quality.
Very
That's
good.
cool.
Yep.
Now, I see this horn attack on these guys, and I also see the Mosasaur antler attack too. I kind of like these guys having like knockdown with the horn attack too.
All the time?
Well, yeah, maybe.
Well, see, the
don't know.
Musatars, theirs is inaccurate. It's balanced. It has 2 abilities. All the other ones only have 1. But it's balanced with theirs because it has inaccurate.
The Musatars? Well, and the
Musatars are-
the concussive ability, in my opinion, is probably one of the most
That's why
one of the most combat tipping effective ones that you can. But again, knockdown is it's a flavor. It's you still need to activate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
I don't know. It's a thought. I mean, adding.
The problem is if I give their attack knockdown, then their ferocious charge, it's a waste of my time to give it knockdown also. So
because you're using. Okay. What I was looking at the ferocious charge was with the melee weapon. Oh, because you use brawl for the horn attack, don't you?
Yeah, so you could
So
use
you
your
would
horn
get it.
attack
Okay.
in conjunction with a ferocious charge and
Sounds
give
good.
it knockdown.
And then you have the knockdown. Okay, I got it. Okay, sounds good. Okay.
So,
Moving on.
and again,
Excellent.
I think
Very
they came out pretty well balanced, especially with
yeah.
Brawl being the only skill available to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Pretty cool.
Makes sense for that.
Pretty
All right,
cool.
next we have the Torakesh Elkin, or Elktars. Elk-headed, charismatic, and attractive, Elkin are the performers, negotiators, and leaders of the Torakesh. They also emit pheromones via their antlers that help them make them appear more amicable and attractive to those around them.
You're into that kind of thing.
So, presence-based, they're going to have that presence of 3,
Yeah.
but like all bardish type guys, they have not a lot of willpower. So willpower 1. Everything else is a 2.
Yeah, I can resist anything except temptation.
Oh, it's moving. I'm going to go get it.
Exactly. It would be, these guys just remind me of the deer in my area, which seem to be always in rut, but whatever.
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
So they're
Attracted to your Jeep.
beginning
Yeah.
wounds is 10 plus brawn. And their beginning strain is 12 plus willpower.
Okay.
So a little out of balance there, but I make up for that with the XP hit. They are 80 beginning XP.
True.
The Elkin begin with 1 rank in either Charm or Negotiation. And again, can't train that beyond 2. Antlers. They have an antler. Elkin have a rack of impressive and sharp antlers that can be used as a natural weapon. Uses the Brawl skill. Damages Brawn +1. Crit 2 with the specials of Vicious and Pierce 1.
Wow.
Nice.
Nice.
Night Vision. Elkin remove up to 2 setback dice from all checks in near and up to near total darkness. And lastly, Soothing Pheromones. By emitting a wave of pheromones, Elkin can affect emotional states of other beings. Once per check, as an incidental, you may suffer 2 strain to upgrade the ability of a charm or a negotiation check against a living being within short range. This has no effects on targets wearing breathing masks or using respiratory systems. So I basically copied that from the Feline in Star Wars.
Okay.
It's essentially the same.
Cool.
So that's the Elkin.
Nice.
Last one. So the Gazelle, or the Gazir. Torakesh Gazir, the Gazelle Tors. The gazelle-headed Gazir are quick, agile, and are so attuned to the subtle changes in their environment that they are almost impossible to ambush. Serving the Torakesh herds for centuries as ranged combatants, drivers, pilots, and such, the Gazir tend to be seen as either cowards or maniacs, depending on the individual.
Okay.
I'm out of here.
So they have a brawn of 1 and an agility of 3. Everything else is a 2.
Got it.
Wounds is 9 plus brawn. Strain is 11 plus willpower. Starting XP of 90. Beginning skill. Gazir begin with 1 rank in vigilance. That's going to take into account that quick reflexes.
Yep.
Right.
Wicked horns. Crowned with a pair of ultra-sharp horns, the Gazir use these as a last resort to quickly gore an enemy and retreat. So they don't do a lot of damage. They use the Brawl skill. They have a Brawn +0 damage rating. But they have a crit of 2 and the special abilities of Accurate 1, Pierce 2
Nice.
for that deadly strike and retreat.
Got it. I like it.
Now the Gazir, to fit in the cockpits of any craft that the Taurian people may have, they tend to be small. They are silhouette 0. Very thin and short.
All
And
right.
lastly, prey instincts. The Gazir may use their agility for vigilance, for initiative instead of willpower, and may spend 1 strain for an additional maneuver in the first round of combat. This does not allow Gazir to exceed the maximum of 2 maneuvers per turn.
So only costs
in that
one
initial-
strain. Yeah.
1 strain in that initial round of combat.
Gotcha.
That's pretty good.
Cool.
So that's just basically, hey, I want to get the hell out of here. I need that maneuver to get to chicken shit range.
There you go. Yeah. GTFO.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out.
Now, the last thing I did, I said a little bit of racial tweaking is involved. You know, I wanted these guys to be the experiments of a genetic tinkerer from way back when. And so I did this little blurb at the end.
Yeah, you've really captured that in this, in my opinion. Well done. So, okay, let's hear it.
So we have the legacy of the Cedars. Since they were designed and released into the multiverse eons ago, the Torakash have adapted to hundreds of differing environments over time. Also, as a side effect of their tinkered DNA, genetic abnormalities continue to appear in the bloodlines of the Torakash that have absolutely nothing to do with lineage or environmental conditions. This is represented in our setting by the expenditure of XP and character creation only on genetic aberrations. A character may spend up to 15 XP worth of genetic aberrations, whether that is 3 minor ones, a combo of a minor and a regular, or 1 major, or none at all is up to the player. Here is a list of some suggested aberrations. GMs feel free to add and remove some as you see fit. So I've got some 5-point or minor aberrations. That would include low light vision, which gives you a setback, remove setback die in minor darkness. Heat vision, add a boost die to perception and vigilance checks in hazy or foggy conditions. Mm-hmm. Acute hearing, add a boost die to perception or vigilance checks when sound is involved. An olfactory upgrade, add a boost die to perception and vigilance checks when smell is involved. Tactile sensory acuteness, add a boost die to skullduggery or mechanics checks when using your hands.
Or trunk.
Or trunk. Or a runner's gait. Basically those retrograde knees. Add a boost die when making athletics or coordination checks to navigate obstacles. Those are simple, very conditional 5-point aberrations. Now we get into the regular aberrations. These are the 10 XP. Okay. First one, chameleon skin. So long as you do not move, the difficulty of anyone trying to see you when you are hidden is upgraded twice. Nice. Next, we have water lungs. The character may hold their breath for up to 1 hour at a time. They don't breathe underwater, but they're really good at holding breath underwater. Nice. Next, second liver. The character may make an average, that's 2 purple, resilience check to immediately negate the effects of 1 alcohol or toxin as an action.
Sweet.
Good. Hidden limb. After a successful melee attack, the character may spend 2 strain once per encounter to hit with a light melee weapon held in this appendage, dealing the weapon's base damage plus any uncancelled successes. So basically, they've got a hidden limb that they keep tucked away, and every once in a while, they can pop it out and stab somebody with it.
So, hey, the Woolly Tor has another trunk.
Yes, a double trunk. Or,
whoa.
Or maybe the Moose Star has a prehensile something else. You know.
Yes.
Whoa.
It's bigger than a baby's arm.
Now do you have to roll to hit? You have to roll to hit, right? Once per encounter.
Nope. After a successful melee attack with other weapons.
Oh, okay.
Spend 2 strain, and you immediately hit with this, doing base damage plus uncancelled successes.
From the roll. Okay, gotcha. Okay, got it.
Okay. Scaled undercoat. They may not wear heavy armor if they have this aberration, just because it won't fit. But they increase their soak by 1. So if they're a light armor wearer, they could very well take a scaled undercoat.
Right.
Last one under the regular aberrations, bioluminescence. This character emits a faint soothing light that illuminates out to short range. It also provides those inside the light 2 boost dice on checks to recover strain.
Hey, one go back. The scaled undercoat, would the rhinos, the rhinoceroses, be able to take that and get a soak of 3 instead of...
That's natural armor. It's not heavy.
I'm sorry, what?
That's natural armor. It's not heavy.
So you're saying yes?
Yes.
This is on top of their...
Stacked.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah, they've got scales on top of their tough hide, yes.
Yeah. As a suggestion, instead of calling it regular aberrations, maybe like moderate aberrations.
I went with the theme of, that's great. I did think of that, but I went down the line of the favors from
minor, regular, and major.
From Shadow of the Beanstalk, which are minor, regular, and major.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, as far as aberrations, like regular aberrations, yeah, they're just regular aberrations. Like everyone's got them. Anyway, it's just a suggestion for the name. It's just
no. I think now that you mentioned that, I may go to moderate. I like that. Okay.
All right.
Last but not least, the 15-point or the major aberrations. These are where the cool things happen. Number 1, fire breathing. Gain a ranged light attack that emits a gout of fire. It's a damage, just straight up damage of 4, crit 3, with a special of burn 2. Simple as that. I didn't put the range, but it would be short.
Gotcha.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Next, Predatory Maw. Gain a brawl attack for having an oversized mouth filled with sharp teeth. Damage, brawn +2, crit 3, special is vicious 3.
So you mean my Mosasaur can have a gator mouth? Is that what you're telling me here?
Yes.
All right.
Or shark teeth.
Or
whichever.
shark teeth. Yeah.
Okay. Wall walking.
Nope, he's going to have that.
As long as he or she has one hand free and is barefoot, the character may traverse walls and ceilings as if they were walking on the floor.
Just a slight tweak to the wording here. Probably bare-hoofed.
Bare-hoofed.
If you're
yes.
Instead of...
Fair enough.
Which kind of brings me to the next one later on, but we'll get there later.
Unless, and I had a question about this, are these aberrations, these genetic aberrations, only available to the Tarakesh, or would this be available to any of our other races, given GM approval or whatever?
I would see some of these available for the Zol sometimes, like wall walking bugs.
Well, I mean, that's totally up to you guys.
Yeah.
But
who knows what the Cedars were up to?
We'll continue.
Continuing, retractable claws. Gain a nasty brawl weapon that is a long set of long claws that are quickly retracted and hidden. Brawl weapon with damage brawn +1, crit 2, special pierce 2. And then a new ability that I added, which is hidden. When attacking with a hidden weapon, add 2 automatic successes.
Pretty cool.
Cool.
Okay. Next one, prehistoric horns. Your horns or antlers are replaced by a larger, more deadly version. Increase their damage by 2, reduce their crit rating by 1.
Whoa.
They also gain the inaccurate one or increase their inaccurate rating by 1 if they already had one.
Right.
So they get huge horns.
Yes.
Yes. Huge racks on these guys. That's right.
That's it.
Gals.
And the last one.
Yep.
Paralyzing antlers. Gain a poisonous resin that secretes from the tips of your horns or antlers. Anyone hit by a successful attack with them will immediately make a hard, that's 3 purple, resilience check, or take 3 strain damage.
So, just the tip, Tony? You said?
Just the tips.
Just the tips.
Dude! That's rock, man.
That's pretty cool.
Like I said, when you started this section of this legacy of the Cedars, this really gives a nice flavor to what these Cedars have done with the genetic manipulation and whatever. I like what you've done here, man. Well done. Well done on this race as well.
Yeah, all 3 were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to play like the animal type races or whatever like that, but yeah, I get a couple concepts. Maybe a wall walking Mosasaur.
Yeah.
See, I also thought...
Who's got a sweet tooth? He likes maple syrup.
So I also thought, what if that Woolatar wants to have tusks that are big and nasty, and that's why he can take that genetic ability to get those prehistoric tusks that do a crap load of damage.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
So,
that's cool, dude. Well done, man.
All right.
Very good.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty much it for the books of Genesis, folks. Now, it was a very long section, so we're going to go over and have a quick advantageous threats. We're skipping setting the tone,
Yep.
and then we'll get on.
Hopefully, we can keep this under 3 hours for you all. But hey, you get what you can pay for, right?
Well, that's
All
it.
kinds of good stuff. All right, let's move on then.
All right, cool. All right, welcome back to part 3 of this show. Our favorite part, called Advantageous Threats, where we build and dice pools and roll and educate the sample dice skill checks for all of your entertainment. So, you can laugh at us going, I would have done it differently. But anyway. So today we'll start with Chris. What do you got for us?
Well, what I have is I have my character, Regendry Coffin, a Zemlian scholar. He's in a gunfight with a number of street thugs, and more are arriving. So he's noticed that if he shoots like this control panel nearby, a large number of timber will kind of fall and drop, so that the adversaries, will give Regendry and his buddies time to go, time to leave. Ah. So basically, what he's going to do is he's going to use his brilliant archetype ability, which allows him to use his intellect on the next following skill check, which will be a shooting a pistol at this, I don't know, rope holding this lumber up.
Right, rope or chain or whatever.
Rope, chain, whatever. He's got a 2 agility, 4 intellect, and it's going to be at medium range, which will make this shot a... and he has 1 rank in the range light skill, so it'll be 1 yellow, 3 green, so that base pool of his intellect of 4. Medium range will give him 2 purple, and because this is going to be an aimed shot, he's going to take the aimed maneuver. Sorry, not an aimed shot, a called shot. He's going to use the aim maneuver and get 2 setback die for this.
Gotcha.
And, he's a smart guy, so he doesn't really have any other talents to help him out here. His brilliant ability is the best he could do. So that's what I've got so far. Okay. Anybody want to do anything to that? And I think, maybe he'll spend 2 strain during this and remove one of those setback die to effectively really focus on the called shot.
Right, a double aim called shot.
Basically a double aim called shot. Yep. So I'm sitting with 2 purple and a setback die with this.
All right.
Okay,
and
you said reinforcements are arriving, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he wanted to drop.
Well, maybe some of them are coming from more of a side alley, and may not be able to block those off. I'd like to use that as a reason for a GM to flip a storyline.
Oh, great idea!
Right.
Great, well done. All right. Anything else?
Well, I would say another setback, but while you're aiming, these other guys that are still shooting at you, you still have bullets whizzing by.
So heat of the moment, he's not necessarily a combat guy. He's a guy at chicken shit range trying to figure stuff out.
That's it. So he's still flinching. That might,
all right, that works.
While aiming.
All right.
That would be it for me.
Okay. So I've got 1 yellow, 3 green, a red, a purple, and a 2 setback dice.
All right.
All right. So here we go. Let's see what we got here. We have a let's see. We have 1 success, 1 advantage. Yay!
There we go.
One of the setback dice came up blank. So you know what? The whizzing didn't really. The bullets whizzing by didn't really phase him.
No,
he was focused.
these guys are stormtroopers. Yeah, these guys are stormtroopers. They weren't anywhere close to you.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, so one success, one advantage. I guess, so the load of lumber does drop, and we'll say that it'll basically give the guys shooting at him, whoever's going next, maybe a setback die because of maybe the dust that kind of kicks up. When
even the guys that are coming in from another direction, there's still lots of.
Well, with just one advantage, I'd say maybe the next bad guy gets dust in their eyes or something like that, and they'll get a setback die maybe.
That sounds good.
Cool.
See, I see this scene taking place near a lumberyard, right?
I think so.
Maybe there's a bunch of sawdust on the ground. When the logs hit the ground, the sawdust kicks up.
Yeah, maybe it's in one of those, one of those, on a river where the lumber yards coming through, and
the ships dropping lumber off and picking them up.
And then they're like, "Hey, we need to go get our drinks at the Epsilon Eclipse. Let's GTFO."
That's it.
So we gotta get back to the tavern.
Last one in has to buy the drinks.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Just for it to be different, I'll go next.
Okay.
So my character is one of the races I created, the Zal Hinal, named Ethal Ejin. She's a Mentari, so she has psionic powers. She's the moth. The moth people. Okay. That was my next question. Who are Zal, the Hinal again? Exactly. Those are the psionics, moth-like mystics.
Sweet.
And she needs to help two of her friends across a chasm by levitating them across.
Oh.
So she can get over, not a problem, later on, but she needs to
because of that broken fly ability you gave the Mothmen. No.
That's it, exactly. So she's going to use her psionic ability based off of will. Mm-hmm. So she's got 1 green and 3 yellow. She's using augment to allow them to fly over the obstacle. So the base difficulty is 2 purple, and then it's plus 2 purple per additional target, which would give her basically 6 difficulty. But I think the maximum is 5, so it could upgrade one of the purple to a red automatically.
Doesn't additional target? It'll cost 2, and that's you only spend the 2, and then you could spend advantage beyond that, right? I think that's how additional targets work.
Yeah, no, right. Additional target and 2 targets, so that would be only plus 2, right?
Yeah, and then so your additional target is somebody else, and then if you have an advantage, then you can get a 3rd target, and another advantage,
she has
4th target.
Well, with advantage that could be added, but if she wants to actually be sure to target, let's say 2, it would be plus 2 purple. That's what the chart says. And actually, I had written it as actually getting 3 targets across. So I'll keep it at 3 targets. So she's
so you're adding 2 difficulty. You're adding 2 difficulty per extra target.
Yeah, so it would be 3 targets total. So a base difficulty of 2 for the first person, and then another plus 4 difficulty for the additional 2.
But that's plus 6. Does that break the rules 6. Or no? I thought
technically, I believe it. If I remember correctly, I don't have the book open.
6 or plus 5? I can't remember.
It would be 6 difficulty if you just go by the number of dice. But since the maximum is 5 dice, one of those purple dice would be automatically upgraded to a red as the 6th difficulty dice. That's how I was doing it. So at least that's what I thought.
Okay.
And then she possesses an implement called the Amethyst Band of Power, like a ring, basically, a magic ring, which allows her to reduce difficulty of augment, an augment ability by 2. So
for anything it adds to augment?
For just augment. For additional targets.
Okay.
Gotcha.
It reduces by 2, so back down to 4 difficulty. But still pretty tough for her.
Yep.
So that's my dice pool. 4 purple, 3 yellow, and 1 green.
Okay.
Since, of course,
So
it's
the red
important.
goes away then?
The red will go away since there's only 4 difficulty dice.
Gotcha.
Her amethyst band helps her focus that ability for her.
And I think, to be honest with you, I've adjudicated it myself before on like other magic checks. As long as you have an implement, if you didn't have the implement, you would never be able to make this check.
No,
The implement actually is what makes doing this possible.
Right.
Because yes, while it would be 6 difficulty, that's impossible with magic as is. But because the implement exists and it automatically reduces it by 2, I would let it happen. That's generally, you don't have to have the 5 plus an upgrade conversation at all. Just
But the whole reason why we're talking about it being 6 is because you want to guarantee you're hitting 2. You don't want to, because you can make this check at a just adding 2 to it. Right.
Well, yeah, if she gets lucky enough to get advantage, but she's not sure of doing that, so trying to do it maybe because she's pressed for time because those other goons that are firing on Regendry,
there you go.
So she needs to move the other 2 beyond the chasm.
It would be better. It would only be a 2 purple check if you did it that way, though. Too, by the way.
If it were, only 2, only on 1 target. But she
then
wants to make sure she gets 2 targets.
But then your advantage that you could get potentially.
Potentially.
Good. Gotcha.
But if she wants to make sure to hit those 3 targets, do it this way. And I'll flip a story point to get 4 yellow.
Nice.
And 4 purple.
Well, let's see. Well, I'm thinking that, because you are going over a chasm here.
Yeah.
That this is going to be fairly dangerous. So I'm thinking the you're going to have to flip over one to make at least one of red.
At least 1 red, yep.
And I think to keep them in range, based on the narrative here, you're going to have to fly over with them as you're going. So flying and using your psionics at the same time, I'd like to throw a setback die on there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
True.
Fair enough. And since, it's me and Stefan.
Nope.
Here we go.
Nope. Do the roll. Come on. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say yes, but then I'm going to say no.
But you haven't heard the reasoning behind it.
All right. Let's hear the reason.
As for a boost light, because even though it's over a chasm, she's flying, there's still an updraft of warm air that helps her keep her aloft.
Okay. And, you could throw another setback die in there because there's an updraft, too, because it's a little distracting.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, and add a setback die.
So 2 setback dice and a boost dice added to all that. All right, let's roll it and see what the damage is. All right, well, no despair.
Bummer.
2 failures on the red dice. So that'll cancel the 2 successes on that one. So we'll just keep going. So just see about real quickly. Got threats, lots of threats. Uh-oh. Lots of threats.
Uh-oh.
A couple of advantages. Not enough to cancel all of those. But we still have... That one cancels that. Still have 3 successes, a triumph, and 3 threat. So she does manage to fly over her 3 allies, in this case, with her implement, and get them safely on the other side.
Do you though?
Whoa.
Do you though? I don't think
successfully. You didn't. We didn't stipulate safely.
Successfully levitate. That is sure. Now, whether they make it all the way across, I don't know. For 3 threat, though, Stefan.
I didn't say they arrived intact. They arrive on the other side.
I like the idea of 3 threat. She's used to using her telekinesis, her psionics, to throw objects.
Yeah. She used a bit of the updraft, a bit too much.
So you think
instead of making them float gently across the chasm, she shoots them like freaking rockets across. And when they hit the far side, each one of them's going to take 3 wounds.
Yep, and will be prone.
As they come to a skid.
It's not the levitation that kills you. It's the sudden stop at the other side.
At the end. But I do also have a triumph. So
yes, you do.
I would say, even though they land a little bit hard, there's some softer material to break their fall.
Excellent.
So there you go. So
There's
maybe
a whole
those
bunch more sawdust over there.
it's just bags of sawdust to
That's right.
to help cushion the fall, and there you go. So maybe a wound and a couple of strains instead. So whatever.
Actually, 3 strain for landing in a pile of sawdust.
Yeah,
Head first, right?
And then they look up, and then they look up at Hethal and go, "You're paying drinks at the Epsilon Eclipse this time."
So Jabbar and Rajendri look up at Hethal and go, "WTF, man?" Or "Woo, man."
Yeah. You're paying the drinks tonight.
Yeah, WTF, Mothman? What the hell? Yeah, you're buying the drinks.
There we go. All right.
Epsilon sour for me, of course.
Yep. So there you go, Tony. What you got
done.
for us?
Okay, so my character, Jubbar Dawnmantle, an
Nice.
Amos psionic adept, will be using his mind shadowing power on an off-duty town guard who's paying an unusual amount of attention to the party's conversation at a local liquor store.
Yeah,
we're
we're
stocking
picking-
up.
Well, Fireball. We got to get Fireball for the Epsilon sours, right? I mean,
Yeah, Epsilon Fireballs.
So he's a standard, regular, run-of-the-mill Amos. So he has that 3 willpower. He has
Cool.
2 ranks in discipline. So he's going to, for his mind shadowing, it's going to be discipline versus discipline. And a standard town guard, I kind of looked them up. They just have that 2 willpower. So right now I'm looking at a 2 yellow, 1 green, 2 purple pool.
All right.
Now I'm thinking crowded bar. Me being noticed using my mind shadowing, probably not going to happen. Can I have a boost die, please? Please?
yes,
Sure, Mike.
and no.
Yes, that'd definitely be appropriate.
Yes, and you said a crowded bar?
Yeah. Or a crowded liquor store, sorry.
Crowded liquor store. Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna. I think I'd like to flip a GM story point here to upgrade it because this off-duty town guard is kind of on the lookout for us in some way. He might have got a description or something.
Yeah,
and that's kind of why he's there.
There's an APB maybe on us.
Some people
There's a
who just
moose.
robbed a lumber yard.
Yes, there's a smell of sawdust in the air, so it kind of led him here.
You heard a story about an Emus, a Hinal, and a Regenji entering a liquor store.
Sounds like the butt end of a joke.
It was kind of a 3-hour tour to get back to the
Yeah.
Epsilon Eclipse too.
Well, that's it.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Is that it then?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Just straightforward like that.
Okay. I am not upgrading my pool in hopes
All right.
that I successfully can pull this off.
All right.
So, I'm going to end up with 1 yellow and 1 red die canceling out, 1 green and 1 purple die that are blank, leaving me with 1 simple success and 2 advantage.
Ooh.
Pretty good.
So at that
nice.
point, I'd say successful mind shadowing check. I am going to spend my story point
Right.
to then upgrade all social checks against this guard for the encounter as I turn to him and begin questioning the guard as to why they are following us.
Ooh.
Aha.
And
There
he
we
enters
go.
into a trance
So you call
state.
shotgun in his brain.
Yep. Mind
Yeah.
freeze.
And I think and your advantage
2 advantage? I
Yeah.
give myself a boost die on that first social
on that first check. All right, that sounds good to me.
Another way to use advantage might be like narratively you glean maybe why he's interested in the PCs.
Maybe you glean a like maybe one of his motivations, which will help on further social checks with this guy.
Yeah, there we go.
True.
After round 0 of the combat check, or sorry, the social check, right?
Yep. Well, there you go.
All right.
So simple uses of our racial abilities. I think that's kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
We all used one. That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
All right.
Indeed.
So I'm ready to go home, even though I am home, but I'm ready to. We're coming up upon 3 hours.
Close. Yeah, close this.
Close this down.
The show. All right. So let's go out.
Put my butt to bed. Let's do this.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now that all the punny talk has been done off air, we are ending the show tonight with a shout out to the Wild Eye Podcast. They're dedicated to the to Savage Worlds by Pinnacle Entertainment Group. They discuss everything from the rules and settings, everything in between, with Eric Lamoureux, Gary McCullum, and Harrison Hunt on there. They have Patreon. They're on the MeWe's. They're Nerds International members. Find them at thewildeye.podbean.com. Email them at thewildeye@gmail.com. And what is now available on DriveThruRPG, we kind of showcased it. We had Eric on talking about it. Wise Guys, the Savage Guide to Organized Crime. I just received my printed version of it from the Kickstarter. Beautiful frickin' book there, Eric. I know I said something to you on MeWe, but man, it is a beautiful book. You should be pretty damn proud of it. Well done, sir. Well done.
Well, a lot of work went into that. Lots of research.
Definitely a work of love, and you can tell. You can definitely tell. So, what else we got there, Stefan?
Then a few, one reminder in particular, the NivCon is still on. There's still a few games up there.
Sweet.
The weekend of November 8th to the 11th. Mm-hmm. Go out there, link in the show notes for the website to either run a game, post it there, or join one of the games that's on there.
Yep, coming up this Friday.
There's a GM that's going to cancel his game if nobody signs up for it. Now, it's not Genesys, but he's running Cyberpunk Savage Worlds. It's got to be good. Matt's a great GM. If you want to try Cyberpunk, he has done a lot of study into Cyberpunk 2020. He studied the Cyberpunk genre. He's really tried to do a good job of putting that into fantasy grounds and doing a cool adventure for Savage Worlds.
When is he running that?
Saturday evening.
Really?
Evening. I know he's been reading Interface Zero, which is, of course, Savage Worlds' source book for Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I actually play tested that for the guy, too.
Yeah, he might have to move it to another day, even if it's not part of NivCon, because his son, part of a football team, and they're on a winning streak. So the game might overlap on Saturday. He's going to let us know as soon as possible. Okay. So there might be still a chance to get in on the game on another weekend. He's going to let us know. There's still a few spots available.
Excelente. Yeah, so that's this Friday,
he's looking for
November
players.
8th.
He wanted me to plug that for him.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Definitely. So even if it's not that weekend, there might still be a chance to join. Let us know. He's on the MeWe as well, Matt Stark. Yep. A.K.A. Frog Dick.
Nice, and I'll put the link to NivCon in the show notes. Yep. So it's this Friday, November 8th, to the 11th. Next Monday, the 11th. I think there's some games on the 11th. I know I'm playing in Jamie's Legion game Sunday morning, and then Tony gaming with you Sunday night, playing Kung Fu Panda.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, wait.
All right.
Noodles.
So if you have questions, insults, or comments, please send them to Gary McCallum at... No, just kidding. It'd be findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. It hasn't changed yet. Somehow I still can't get it. Finding the Narrative is available on Facebook. That's me and Stefan. You can reach all of us over at the MeWe. great place to chat with us all in our own personal chat thread there. Also, Nerds International, a place to hang out and insult each other and all that fun that involves there. Also on Mayway. On Twitter, we're at FTN_Genesis. Stefan is over there to kindly, lovingly handle you.
If I can handle the tweets.
Nice.
And we are still available. Podbean, YouTunes, YouTunes?
YouTunes and iTunes? YouTunes
My
and
tongue
iTunes?
is twisted. We've talked too much. iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and Spotify. This is Tony saying, just shut the fuck up and keep rolling them bones.
This is Stefan saying, don't forget to ask for those boost eyes like I usually do.
That's right. And then remember the rule of cool. Make sure you have a wall-walking antler elk man at some point to just have fun. So, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Peace.
Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned in this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. Copyright 2019, all rights reserved.